Good evening, everyone. I, CA Pradnabam, would like you to welcome today's program, a webinar on do's and don'ts for practicing members organized by Ethical Standards Board. I hereby would like to also welcome our today's esteemed speaker, CA Kamal Garg, for agreeing to take this very interesting topic on today's crucial topics like what should a practicing member can do, cannot do. So looking forward to his amazing session. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce CS Kamal Garg sir. Sir is a fellow member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and is also a BCom from Deen Dayal Upadhyay College, University of Delhi. He is qualified a post-qualification course on DISA conducted by ICI. He is also an insolvency professional registered with IBPI and has done various certificate courses from institute and is also social auditor examiner conducted by NISM. He's contributed vastly to the development of study and regulatory projects undertaken by Indian Institute of Insolvency Professionals of ICI under IBBI, and also has contributed to various publications of accounting standards, board, India's IFRS Implementation Committee and Committee on Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. He's also a regular guest speaker for IFRS and management development programs at various forums, including Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and ICSI. He's also an author of over a dozen of books and commentaries on including IFRS and India's concepts and applications. He's also credited with contributing to Gist of Accounting Standards and Auditing and Assurance Standards, and also has a rich industry experience in areas of corporate laws like Companies Act, FEMA, taxation, foreign collaborations, joint ventures, etc., audits and management consultancy. With today's esteemed speaker, I'm sure that with his interesting background, he'll be able to shed more of a light on today's topic. Not taking further time, I would request Kamal sir to please take charge of the session.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for this warm introduction. And good evening to all of you. I'm thankful to Ethical Standards Board, especially Ashish ji, for inviting me to this program, and his colleague Vishal ji, who is taking all the pains to coordinate all these things. Before I share my screen and discuss the topics with you, generally the conception is that when we say do's and don'ts for members in practice, the conception goes like this: Chartered Accountants Act only. It is not like that. The do's and don'ts are not contained merely in the Chartered Accountants Act. We have Council general guidelines. We have various decisions of Ethical Standards Board and many other things as well, which I will discuss gradually during the course of my deliberation. Before I go live with my screen share, let me ask you certain questions. And if you have the possibility of giving the answers in the chat box or something like that, please pass upon the answers to me and I would be happy to have the answers. Question number one is, the major issue which comes up is about usage of designation. For example, there is a chartered accountant in practice X. Now what he's writing, CAX, FCA, BCom. Now there are many certification courses of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India like FAFD, Forensic Accounting and Fraud Detection course. Can he write after his name FAFD? There is another course like Concurrent Audit Certification. Can he write after his name Concurrent Audit Certification? This is my question number, which I will discuss in detail. The second issue which underlies the theme of our practice is communication with predecessor. So let us assume the last year's statutory audit was conducted by Mr. X. Current year you are proposed. I repeat and emphasize, current year you are proposed to be appointed as statutory auditor. Now what happened? You gave a consent. You gave a consent to the management that I would be happy to have the statutory audit assignment of the current year. Now whether this consent being given by you that I would be glad to undertake the audit, whether this consent amounts to acceptance of statutory audit, this would be the another leg of discussion. Third question, which is very pertinent again, nowadays it's a era of digitization. Many chartered accountants in practice come live on YouTube and many other social media content. Now, let us assume you came live on YouTube and you introduced yourself that I'm a CA in practice, and you took the firm name on YouTube deliberation. Question arises, if the firm name is being taken by you or maybe the anchor of the YouTube, and this goes live or maybe post live, it is a recorded version, can the firm name be used on any educational video uploaded on YouTube? Or maybe it was live then. What you will do? Fourth question, which is quite important. Nowadays, the statutory audit season is going on, tax audit season is going on. The issue arises, if you are the statutory audit, if you are the statutory auditor as well as tax auditor, if you are the statutory auditor as well as the tax auditor of the same entity, whether any board resolution is required for being appointed as tax auditor. And if it is not done so, whether it will lead to any misconduct under Chartered Accountants Act. And maybe Ashish ji and the ESP office may endorse my other question. How many of us as CN practice are aware what is the statutory limit on threshold, or I should say ceiling limits on number of statutory audits? Is it 20 statutory audits per CN practice or 30 statutory audits per CN practice? Then we will also discuss tender guidelines. Is there any notification or announcement by ICI about tender? We'll discuss that thing also with some of the case studies. So keep these questions in mind. I will discuss in detail during the course of my discussion. I'm sharing my screen. Please confirm me. Ashish ji, please confirm me my screen is visible. Is my screen visible, Ashish ji?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Thank you, Ashish ji. So to set the tone, we need to understand the basic premises of entire code of ethics comprising do's and don'ts is enshrined in Chartered Accountants Act 1949, which was amended several times in past. The basic structure of our do's and don'ts can be summarized in this chart. The misconduct on the part of members in practice can be of two types: professional misconduct and other misconduct. You can have a look on this table. The Chartered Accountants Act contains two schedules, first schedule and second schedule. First schedule is having total 4 parts, part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4. Second schedule contains only 3 parts, part 1, part 2, and part 3. If you see, last row is not applicable over here. First schedule, part 1 is applicable to members in practice. First schedule, part 2 is applicable to members in service. First schedule, part 3 is applicable to all the members. And first schedule, part 4 is applicable to all the members. First schedule, part 1, first schedule, part 2, and first schedule, part 3. It deals with the cases of professional misconduct. You can see professional misconduct is at 3 places over here. Part 4 of first schedule deals with the cases of other misconduct. As a replica, when we go to second schedule, part 1 deals with the cases of professional misconduct. Part 2 of second schedule deals with the cases of professional misconduct, whereas part 3 of second schedule deals with the cases of other misconduct. It's very easy to remember. You can always say the last part of each schedule. The last part of each schedule deal with the cases of other misconduct. Today's our deliberation would be focusing upon members in practice, and when they can go into professional misconduct cases or other misconduct cases will be the scenario of discussion. Let us start first deliberation on technical side. It is all about other services, other work. The members may recall that we have section number 2, subsection 2, clause 4 of Chartered Accountants Act. And we have regulation number 190 capital A of Chartered Accountants Regulations 1988 as amended. Now, what these provisions are saying, section number 2, subsection 2, clause 4, and regulation number 190A, when read harmoniously, what they say, a member in practice, please focus on my words, a member in practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct, but I am using professional misconduct. So a member in practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he or she renders any of the following 3 services. That is, pub services, portfolio management services, underwriting services, or brokering services. So if a member is in practice and if he or she is rendering any of these 3 services, portfolio management service, underwriting service, or brokering service, then such member in practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct. For example, I came to you and you are a member in practice, and I said, this is rupees 10 lakhs. I am giving to you as a custodian. Keep this 10 lakh rupees with you. and invest in the good avenues. I will come to you after 1 year and I need 11 lakh rupees from you. So what you did entire year, you managed this rupees 10 lakhs. So this kind of management will be considered in the expression portfolio management service, and it is disallowed. If you do so, it will be a professional misconduct case. Please focus upon the expression portfolio management. The word is management, meaning thereby portfolio advisory services are not prohibited. So if I go ahead with the same example, I came to your office and I said that I have 10 lakh rupees with me. Please advise me where I should invest so that I can maximize the returns. So if you advise me on that part, it will not be considered as prohibited service. It is allowed service and there will be no professional misconduct. So portfolio management service, underwriting service, brokering services, they are prohibited. However, portfolio advisory service is not prohibited. Now the question arises, are there any other services that can be offered by CA practice? Answer is yes. By virtue of the powers contained in Section 224 and Regulation 190A, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, in its various publications for Code of Ethics, has stated that following services will be permitted. So what are the services? Financial management services, working capital management services, preparing of various budgets or financial statements, price fixation, management decision-making services, personal recruitment, setting wage plans, IT services, valuation services as registered valuer, investment counseling services, acting as registrar to issue services, insurance financial advisory services under IRDA norms, etc., recovery consultant in banking sector, admin services. So all these services are permitted. Similarly, preparation of project reports, feasibility studies permitted, advice for raising finance permitted, inventory management services permitted, management accounting system, cost control services permitted, management audits, operational audit, internal audit, quality audit, systems audit, environmental audit, energy audit, all these are permitted. Then organizing, structuring, planning, HR development and training, all these are permitted. Advisor to the issue means the IPO. Drafting of the prospectus, acting as intermediary or advising as intermediary, preparing publicity budgets, post-issue activities permitted, insolvency professional permitted, GST practitioner permitted. So all these services are permitted by virtue of Regulation 190A read with section number 2, subsection 2, clause 4 of the Chartered Accountants Act. Now I have a question over here. Please try to answer this question. Mr. X is a CA in practice and he is a statutory auditor of RST Private Limited. Can he render financial management services to RST Private Limited because the same is permissible under section 2, subsection 2, clause 4, read with regulation 190A? Is any answer? So if the possibility of answering is there for the audience, please pass upon the answers to me. I read my question once again. Mr. X is a CA in practice and he is a statutory auditor of RST Private Limited. So can he render financial management services to RST Private Limited because the same is permissible under section 2, subsection 2, clause 4, read with regulation 190A? Is it permissible? The answer is no. Why? Because although it's permitted, it is permitted under CA law, that is Chartered Accountants law, but it will make him disqualified as statutory auditor under section 141 read with section 144 of Companies Act. So we need to understand, although these services to be rendered are permissible services, but that doesn't mean we will not give any attention to the allied laws. So in this very case, you must be able to understand, while there is no contravention of Chartered Accountants Act or the regulations issued thereunder, if financial management services are rendered to RST Private Limited. But what will happen? This will make him disqualified under Companies Act. So we need to make a very careful analysis of the provisions, like not only the CA law, but also the Companies Act or maybe the other law for the timing in force. Now, what happened? Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, by virtue of Regulation 198, has issued one appendix also. Just see here. Now, this appendix lists two categories of services. Number one, the areas or services or occupations where permission is granted generally and where we need to have a specific resolution or a permission from Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. So for example, permission is given generally to the members in practice for these kind of occupations like employment under CA firm, tutorship with ICI or authorship of books and articles, then holding life insurance agency only for getting renewal commission, attending classes or appearing in exams. So if you are a CA in practice and you're doing some further education, there is no prohibition to attend the classes for the same or appear in exams for the same. There is no prohibition as such for becoming MP or MLA or MLC, notary, justice of peace, special executive magistrate, etc. There is no prohibition as such for honorary office leadership, charitable, educational, non-commercial organization. You can also act as paper valuer, set a moderator. There is no prohibition as such for being the editor of a professional journal. You can also become insurance surveyor or recovery consultant in banking sector. There is no prohibition as such for owning agricultural land and carrying out agricultural activity thereon. However, for these services or these occupations, specific permission from institute is required, like full-time employment or part-time employment in business concerns where he or his relatives do not hold substantial interest. Second, full-time or part-time employment in non-business concerns. Then becoming MD or whole-time director of a body corporate where he or his relatives do not hold substantial interest in family business concerns, achieve, etc. This is something important. If a member in practice is there and he is also into private coaching, then while he teaches in ICI, there is no problem. But if he is into private coaching, then there is a caveat, there is a provision, but it says any teaching or lecturership, private tutorship, full-time or part-time, needs permission from Institute of Chartered Accountants of India where direct teaching hours exceed 25 hours per week. So for example, if a member is in practice and he takes classes in Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, then those classes which he takes in Institute of Chartered Accountants of India or its branches, those number of hours will not be counted. But if you are teaching in university or you are teaching in private coaching centers, then this 25-hour domain will be applicable. There is a special note, as Karta of HUF devolved upon him, he can make investments from HUF funds provided he is not actively engaged in business of HUF. Out of this whole discussion, I believe two things are quite important. One is this private coaching scenario, and second is editorship of professional journals. So for example, if I take on a lighter note, if you are the editor of a professional journal, then there is no problem. But say, for example, if you are the editor of any personal or any kind of non-professional journal like Malayalam Manorama or Champak Comics, if you're having the editorship of those things, then it will lead to a professional misconduct. You can do so only with the permission from Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Then we have clause number 11 of first schedule. I'm touching upon the important clauses only. Clause 11 of first schedule of Chartered Accountants Act says that, and where this clause number 11 lies, part 1 of first schedule. So part 1 first schedule, clause 11, what it says, a member of ICI into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if number 1, he engages into other business or occupation, or number 2, while he holds full-time certificate of practice, he also engages into full-time employment. So if these two cases are there with a member in practice, it will result in professional misconduct. However, there will be no professional misconduct if such engagement is undertaken by him with ICI permission, or there is no professional misconduct if he becomes a director simpliciter in any body corporate or any company. Now, who is director simpliciter? Director simpliciter is an individual who becomes director in a company and fulfills two conditions. Condition number 1, that he is drawing no remuneration. He is drawing no remuneration other than sitting fees. He is drawing no remuneration other than the sitting fees. So if this is the case, he will be considered as director simpliciter. Then there is no professional misconduct. He gets himself employed in a CA firm. So if you are a CA in practice and you just qualified your CA exams and you started your practice, so in initial days, you may engage yourself as an employee of a CA firm. Then there is no professional misconduct. And there is no professional misconduct if you render those other services which we just have discussed in section 224 and regulation number 198. Let me ask you a question. Try to answer this question over here. Mr. X is a CA in practice and is also the owner of a mall which he devolved upon from his father after his demise. He is earning rental income from such mall. Question is it allowed under Chartered Accountants Act? Yes, any answer if you can pass it. So there's a CA who's into practice and he's also the owner of a mall and he's earning rental income from such mall. Is it allowed under Chartered Accountants Act? To my personal understanding, the answer should be no, because clause number 11, part 1, first schedule shall be attracted. But yes, if he wants to carry forward this business of running the mall, then he needs to take permission from Institute of Chartered Accountants of India by virtue of the discussion which we had earlier. So to my understanding, this contravenes clause 11, part 1 of first schedule to avoid any such contravention. ICAI permission must be obtained. I believe this question must be able to clear the implications of clause number 11. Now we have another clause, clause number 6. Clause number 6, part 1, first schedule, what it says, a member of ICAI into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he solicits clients or professional work. Now, what this clause says, solicitation can be direct or indirect, through circular, through advertisement, personal communication, or interview. However, there will be no professional misconduct if one CA in practice is requesting or securing the work from another CA in practice. Now, please see the words are CA in practice. So, if you have a friend who is into job, into any company or industry, and you are requesting him to give some work to yourself, it will be a professional misconduct. So, demanding the work from CA in employment, it will be professional misconduct, but demanding the work from other CA in practice will not be a professional misconduct. Similarly, clause number 6 says there will be no professional misconduct if you are responding to any tender or inquiry. But please understand, on 7th April 2016, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India made some announcements about responding to tenders. So what I will say, responding to tenders or inquiries will not be a professional misconduct only if the guidelines given by ICAI for responding to tenders have been complied with. Now, what are these guidelines? So on 7th April 2016, these guidelines were issued by Institute. A member in practice shall not respond to any tender, in those areas of services which are exclusively reserved. These words are very important. In those areas of services which are exclusively reserved for chartered accountants under any law. But member in practice may respond if the minimum fee of assignment is prescribed in the tender document itself. To understand this guideline about responding to tenders, let us consider two case studies. Case study number 1 or question number 1. Measures XYZ and company, a mid-size chartered accountants firm, came across a tender floated by state government for conducting statutory audits of government-owned corporations under the Companies Act 2013. The tender document clearly mentioned scope of work, statutory audit of the corporation and its subsidiaries, eligibility only firms of chartered accountants registered with ICAI, minimum fees mentioned in the tender document, rupees 4 lakhs per audit assignment fixed by the department. Now the question arises, can this XYZ company, a mid-sized CA firm, respond to this tender And if the answer is yes, whether this will be resulting in any kind of misconduct. Please check yourself. What is the scope of work? Statutory audit. Now, the statutory audit is an area which is exclusively reserved for chartered accountants in practice. And what the guideline says, if you are going to respond a tender in that very area which is exclusively reserved for chartered accountants, then you can respond to this tender only if minimum fees is given by the tender document. Now, what the tender document says, minimum fees is mentioned therein, that is 4 lakhs per audit assignment. So because the statutory audit work is exclusively reserved for members in practice, and the tender document mentions the minimum fees for the same, if XYZ company, this CA firm responds to this tender document, there will be no professional misconduct. Question number second, Measures D and Company, a mid-sized firm of chartered accountants, came across a tender from a large manufacturing company for conducting internal audit of its branches across India. The tender document clearly mentioned scope of work, audit of 12 branches over a 6-month period. Eligibility tender was open to chartered accountants, cost accountants, and management consultants. Minimum fees, no minimum fees was mentioned in tender document. Now selection was based on lowest financial bid L1 after technical qualification. Now the question arises, can DEF and company, this CA firm, respond to this tender? Answer is yes. Why the answer is yes? First of all, the area of work is internal audit. And this internal audit work is not exclusively meant for CA and practice alone. Even other professionals like cost accountants, like company secretaries, other management consultants or finance professionals, they can also render internal audit services. So because the area is not reserved only for chartered accountants, there is no need to have the minimum fees mentioning in the tender document, meaning thereby, in this very case, there is no professional misconduct if DEF and company responds to this tender document, and there will be no contravention of clause number 6 in such a scenario. I believe these two questions must have made you understand the implication of this 7th April 2016 announcement. So we have clause number 7, part 1 first schedule. Clause 7, part 1 of first schedule states that a member of ICI into practice. So a member in practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if number 1, he advertises his attainment services, or number 2, he uses unapproved or wrong designations. So for example, if you're a member in practice and after your name you're writing expert in bank audits, as consultant, these are wrong designations, and if you do so, it will be a professional misconduct. Now, what are the exceptions? Exceptions are, you can advertise by virtue of write-up. So you may contribute some article or a write-up in a magazine, like for example, Taxman, for example, ICI Journal, Chartered Accountant. If you're writing some write-up over there or an article over there, then you can advertise your services. We will discuss write-up guidelines separately. Now, what are the guidelines for write-up? They say, just a second. The write-up guidelines are, if you're contributing a write-up or an article for a magazine or for any kind of a media, then certain guidelines need to be followed. First is no exaggeration, only honest and true information. For example, you wrote a write-up on income tax assessments under Section 148 of the Income Tax Act. So then you are writing the write-up, be honest over there, give the true information, do not make any exaggeration. In the write-up, you should not claim any superiority over others. So you cannot write in the write-up that I am a chartered accountant in practice who is having vast experience which others are not having, or we are renowned CA firm. So please do not use these words, renowned CA firm or reputed CA firm, because this results in claiming superiority over others. The write-up shall not be in a nature of bringing disrepute to the profession. No testimonials, endorsements of clients' names or fees charged from them shall be given in the write-up. There shall be no information in the write-up about achievements or awards other than given by central government, state government, or regional branches. Then there shall be no monogram in the write-up. However, when you contribute to the write-up, you can give your membership number or firm registration number. The font size of write-up shall not exceed 14. The write-up shall comply with the provisions of the law, but there is a precautionary note: CA logo, passport style photograph, year of establishment, contact information, partners details, employees details, service provided. Are these permitted to be given in write-up? Answer is yes. These are permitted to be given in the write-up. And now please understand, only CA logo is permitted, no other logo is permitted. Then we have the guidelines of website also. So now website guidelines, what they say, No format or color scheme is given by ICAI, prescribed by ICAI for website. So you can have website of your choice. The structure of the website, the design of the website can be of your choice, no problem as such. But the restrictions are the website should run on pull model and not on push model. So if I give an example, you prepared and published your website. On the website, a pop-up comes up. So on a website, if pop-up is coming, it means that website is running on push model, not on pull model. And if it is the case, it will be professional misconduct. You're allowed to mention the website name on your official stationery email. No circular, banner, or advertisement is permitted on the website. Write-up or educational videos are permitted on the website. Now be careful, date of establishment is not permitted on the website, but year of establishment permitted. So on your website, you cannot write, for example, established 26 January 1980, but you can write established 1980. So date of establishment is not permitted, year of establishment is permitted. Then on your website, what you can do, nature of services, number of partners, their biodata, details of vacancies, number of article assistants, online services with or without fees, they are permitted on the website. Then the same thing which we discussed for write-up, it is also here. No logo other than CA logo and no emblem of ICAI is permitted on the website. So I have seen certain websites where the Gurud logo of institute, called as emblem, is also there on the website of the Chartered Accountants in Practice. It is disallowed. And if it is so, it will be a professional misconduct. Similarly, names of the clients and the fees charged from them is not permitted on the website. So if you have a client, for example, X Private Limited, you cannot write X Private Limited as the client name on your website. Now, if it is mandated by any regulatory requirement that you have to mention the client name on your website, then you can mention, else it is not being permitted. Only passport styled photograph is permitted. Chat rooms amongst ICAI members and their clients, document management facility, they are permitted on the website. However, confidentiality needs to be maintained. Links can be provided only for ICAI and other regulatory and professional bodies. So if you have a website and on the website you're providing a link to yahoo.com, to redditmail.com, this is not permitted because these links are not regulatory links or professional body specified links. Then links to social networking site can be provided on non-solicitation basis. So you cannot give a pop-up, visit my LinkedIn page, visit my Facebook page, that is not permitted. Name of the website should be as near as possible to the name of the CA or the firm. Now, what about social media guidelines? Very recently, social media is in vogue and certain guidelines were required. So Institute issued certain social media guidelines, which are very important in present day scenario. Let me give the guidelines what the Institute stated. A firm of CAs may have an account on social networking websites. So you can have your account on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, that is allowed. The same thing is allowed even for members in practice. A member in practice may have an account on social networking websites wherein he may represent himself as a proprietor or a partner in a firm. A firm or a member may give link of his website or web page, as the case may be, on the social networking website. Members are expected to exercise professional discretion and utmost dignity while using the designation chartered accountant or prefix CA on his personal account on the social networking websites for posting contents or comments. The Institute further stated, as a member of an esteemed institute, it is not appropriate to post contents or comments on social networking website using words or caricatures which are derogatory or not in conformity with dignity of the profession or result in negative portrayal of the profession. If I give a theme at a macro level, the basic objective is when you post something on social media, you have to keep in mind the dignity of the profession, and we should not post anything on the social media which becomes derogatory in scenario. Institute further stated, a member whether in practice or in service. Although today's theme is members in practice, but this guideline applies to both members in practice as well as service. So what the Institute says, a member whether in practice or in service may be maintaining an account on social networking websites in his personal capacity. Besides, contents of personal nature, following contents pertaining indirectly to the member's professional domain may also be mentioned on such websites. Number one, videos of educational nature may be uploaded on internet by the members, subject to the compliance with the relevant provisions of Code of Ethics. Now, what are these relevant provisions of Code of Ethics? For this purpose, you have to visit Code of Ethics Volume 2nd, 2020 edition issued by ICAI. Code of Ethics Volume 2nd, 2020 edition, but it says no reference should be made to chartered accountants firm wherein the member is a partner or proprietor. Further, it should not contain any contact details or website address. So if your videos of educational nature are there on internet, for example, YouTube, then as per the provisions of Code of Ethics, what is the restriction? The restriction is there shall not be any reference to the CA firm wherein you are the partner or the proprietor. Further, there shall not be any contact details or website address being there on such video. As you further stated, the member may post such contents on the website which help the profession grow in the perception of the world and contributes towards the enhancement of its reputation using expert knowledge in respective specialization to enrich discussions, help solve problems, and promote learning and idea sharing. Basically, the theme is the content which is there on the videos and it is being published on internet must not be of promotional nature. Rather, it must be of educational nature in letter and spirit. There's a precaution now. The date of setting up the practice by a member or the date of establishment of the firm on letterheads and other professional documents should not be mentioned. So exceptions were only two. One is website, other is write-up. Other than that, the date of setting up the practice and the date of establishment cannot be given. Further, if you are advocate, I assume that Bar Council of India permitted you to practice as an advocate and you're holding COP or a CA also. Institute says in such a case, the designation chartered accountant and advocate cannot be used simultaneously. Now we have clause number 8, the most important clause, which is the soul of members in practice. Clause 8, part 1, first schedule, what it says: a member of ICAI who is into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if no written communication with previous auditor is being made before accepting the position as an auditor. I repeat, a member of ICAI who is into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he makes no written communication. So oral communication is not allowed. No written communication is made with the previous auditor before accepting the position as an auditor. Per se, in the law, there are no exceptions. Now in Code of Ethics, Volume 2, Year 2020 edition, certain clarifications have been issued. Now these are the clarification. Number 1 clarification, Clause 8 applies to audits and certification assignments, including like statutory audits, internal audit, GST audits, etc., even special audits under Income Tax Act. So in real world, I have a couple of experiences where the special auditor was appointed and previously special audit was carried out by some other person. Even in such cases, the communication is required, although it is a mandate under the Income Tax Act, but yes, Chartered Accountants Act governance will go hand in hand. Clause 8 needs to be complied even when predecessor is other professionals. So for example, last year, RST Private Limited was internally audited by some company secretary. And this year, RST Private Limited wants to appoint you as internal auditor. Now, there could be a debate and an argument whether this communication is required with the predecessor who happens to be the member of ICAI. Answer is yes. Code of Ethics, Volume 2, Year 2020 edition says it will be a healthy practice to communicate even to such non-member predecessor. Number 3, communication has to be made in a manner that ensures, that is, positive evidence is there that actual delivery has taken place, like hand delivery, registered post, acknowledgement due, email ID registered with the ICAI. Just see the words email ID registered with the ICAI, and reply therefrom from the outgoing auditor, etc. But communication under postal certificate is not permitted. Generally, this is the area, email ID registered with ICAI, where people are lagging. I have seen the practice that one member is there, he has different email ID for the purpose of communication, and he has an ID with ICAI records, which is only meant for ICAI purposes. So if a member in practice is maintaining 2 email IDs, one email ID only for communication with ICAI, like SSP portal, and second email ID is for official communications. So what happened, the incoming auditor communicated to the predecessor on his email ID, which was in public domain for the purpose of official communication. Then this communication will not be considered as valid communication. Because what we need to communicate? We need to communicate on the email ID registered with ICAI. So we need to first of all ascertain whether the email ID provided to you by the predecessor is the email ID for official communication or the email ID registered with ICAI. Then reply from the previous chartered accountant is not binding upon the incoming CA. If reply from previous CA is not received, within reasonable time, then assignment can be accepted. Now, what is reasonable time will depend upon case-to-case basis. Number 6 is very important. If audit was applicable in year 1 and year 3, but was not applicable in year 2, even then such communication is required in year 3 for the purpose of this clause 8. For example, let us assume in the previous year 22-23 tax audit was applicable and Mr. X was the tax auditor. In year 23-24 tax audit was not applicable. In year 24-25 tax audit again became applicable, but the owners appointed you as the tax auditor. So before accepting this appointment, you have to communicate with the tax auditor of year 1, that is 2023. So even intermittent breaks will not avoid the communication requirements of clause number 8. In case of death of the previous CA being proprietor, though there is no need for communication, but incoming chartered accountant must document the fact of his death in his working papers. There could be a situation like there were letters which were returned with remarks, locked premises or firm not found, then shall be deemed that delivery has taken place. This is the announcement of institute, and or I should say clarification from the institute. The source is given at the bottom of this clip. Now this is something very important, and this answers the question which I asked in the beginning of my speech. Requirements of clause 8 part 1 of a schedule to Chartered Accountants Act 1949 is to communicate with the previous auditor before accepting the appointment of audit. However, merely giving written consent by the member for responding to an eligibility criterion for appointment of company's auditor does not constitute acceptance of an appointment. This is something very important. Merely giving written consent by the member does not constitute acceptance of an appointment. Therefore, it is permissible for a member to provide written consent of such appointment before communicating with the previous auditor. However, member has to ensure that the acceptance of appointment of an auditor is subject to the compliance with the provisions of Code of Ethics. There are doubts amongst the members in practice about outstanding audit fees. Now, let us discuss this point also. So when you refer Code of Ethics, Volume 1, I emphasize Volume 1, then this kind of issue comes up to the minds of the fellow professionals. For this, the clarification is issued by ESB. The Ethical Standards Board issued a clarification in September 2021. Let us understand what this agenda is all about. So when you refer Code of Ethics Volume 1, 2020 edition, para number R410.8. So when I say this code means Code of Ethics Volume 1. So as per para R410.8 of the Code of Ethics Volume 1, when a significant part of fees due from an audit client remains unpaid for a long time, the firm shall determine whether the overdue fees might be equivalent to the loan to the client and whether it is appropriate for the firm to be reappointed or continue the audit engagement. Now, what ESB clarified, there is, however, no bar in signing the financial statements in these circumstances. Only thing is you have to consider these 2 bullet points so that the Code of Ethics provisions are complied with letter and spirit. So what you have to do, you have to make a self-evaluation. You have to make a self-evaluation whether this outstanding fees for a long time impairs your independence. If it is not impairing your independence, then absolutely there is no problem and you can go ahead with the signing of financial statement. Now next comes the clause number 9. Clause number 9 is yet to be amended because it makes a reference to the old sections of Companies Act 56. Now what the clause number 9 is saying, a member of ICI who is into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he does not ascertain the compliance of Section 224 and 225 of Companies Act or any other law for the timing in force regarding his appointment as an auditor. Now this Section 224 and 225 pertains to Companies Act 56. At present, the scenario is Section 224 and Section 225. They have been transitioned into the Companies Act 2013 in this manner. So earlier, Section 224 was dealing with appointment of auditors by special resolution, and it is not the case in the 2013 Act. Now, what is the change? Just see. So you can see this striking off. So the new sections are before you, Section 139, 140, and 141, and Section number 140 as the case may be. So if I say in a new way, a member of ICI is into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he does not ascertain the compliance of Section 139, 140 and 141 of Companies Act 2013. And you have to ascertain this compliance in respect of your appointment as an auditor. Let me place a question before the House. So RST Private Limited was incorporated on 16th December 2024. It appointed, or rather I should correct myself, the managing director of RST Private Limited appointed Mr. X PA in practice as its first auditor within 30 days of company's incorporation. The appointment was made by issuing letter of appointment, which was happily accepted by countersigning by Mr. X. Question is whether Mr. X is guilty under clause 9 or not. So please understand, when we refer section number 139, section number 139 says the first auditors shall be appointed by the board. So who has the powers to appoint first auditors? The powers to appoint first auditors vest with the board of directors. Now what happened here? Who is appointing? The managing director is appointed Mr. X as first auditor. Now Mr. X was oblivion that the resolution from board is required. Note this letter of appointment, and hence what will happen? Mr. X will be guilty. He is guilty because appointment must have been made by the board and not by the MD. Such appointment contravenes section 139. I believe this point must be clear to all of the listeners. That is clause 10, part 1 first schedule. Clause 10, part 1 first schedule says, a member of ICAI into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if his fees is based upon percentage of profits, or he charges his fees on contingent findings basis, or the fees is based upon results of such employment. For example, you're a CN practice and you're engaged, let us say, for any statutory audit, and you say the fees for my statutory audit will be the X% of net profit or X% of net worth of the company. It will result in professional misconduct. However, certain exceptions are given in regulation number 192 of Chartered Accountants Regulations 1988. Now, regulation 192 says that if a CN practice is appointed as liquidator, then he can charge his fees. On percentage of assets realized. So whatever assets you realize, you quoted your fees on X% of assets realization, then there is no professional misconduct. Similarly, if you're appointed as auditor of a cooperative society, then your audit fees can be based upon X% of paid up capital or net profit or working capital society. Meaning, I repeat, if you're appointed as auditor of a cooperative society, then your fees can be based upon X% of number 1, paid up capital of cooperative society, number 2, working capital of cooperative society, and number 3, income of the cooperative society. It is your choice on which parameter you're basing such fees. Now, if you're appointed as a valuer, if you're appointed as a valuer for the purpose of direct taxes. In such a case, your fees can be based upon the value being made. If you're providing some fundraising services like project finance, if you're providing some fundraising services to the client, then your fees can be based upon X% of funds being raised. Similarly, if you're providing debt recovery services, then your fees can be based upon X% of debt being recovered. If you're providing cost optimizing services, then your fees can be based upon X% of cost being optimized. Number 7, if you are being appointed as insolvency professional, then your fees can be based upon X% of assets being realized. And lastly, non-assurance service to non-audit clients. So if you have a client and you're providing some non-audit services like ITR filing services. Now for ITR filing services, but we have to see whether this ITR filing is non-assurance, non-audit service. Answer is yes. So two conditions are there. One is the client must be non-audit client. And second is you are providing some non-assurance services to him, then your fees can be based upon X% of some parameters. For example, if a client comes to you and requests you to appear before income tax appellate tribunal, and you quoted your fees, that my fees will be based upon X% of penalty being saved. In such a case, there will be no professional misconduct because you are providing a non-assurance service called as representation services to non-audit clients. Then we already have covered this clause number 11 earlier, so I will skip this clip. Now, under clause number 11, this thing is something important which we are yet to cover, directorship in a company. So if you are a CN practice, can you become director in a company? For this, several guidelines are there. Institute says a member in practice is permitted generally to be a director solicitor in any company. This we already covered. Now, Institute says further, he is not required to obtain any specific permission of the council in this behalf unless he or any of his partners is interested in such company as an auditor, irrespective of whether he and or his relatives hold substantial interest in that company. Further, there is no bar for a member to be a promoter or signatory to the memorandum and articles of the association of company. There is also no bar for such a promoter or signatory to be director solicitor of that company. So independent director is also covered by this guideline. A member in practice is permitted generally to be a director solicitor, which includes an independent director. Further, as per the guidelines for practicing corporate form, now the members are allowed to establish their private limited or public limited companies after obtaining permission from institute. Now, this company which you create is popularly called as corporate form of practice or management consultancy company. So what institute says in Code of Ethics volume 2, the member in practice who are having this management consultancy company to provide corporate form of practice, they can hold the office of MD or whole-time director or manager of a body corporate within the meaning of Companies Act, provided that body corporate is engaged exclusively in rendering management consultancy and other services permitted by council. Now, what are the permissions? As we discussed already, the permissions are contained in section 224 and regulation number 190 capital A. Now, certain words of precaution. A member shall not accept the assignment of audit of a company for a period of 2 years from the date of completion of his tenure as director or resignation as director of said company. So cooling off period of 2 years is there. A member in practice who was the auditor of a company cannot accept the position of independent director until 3 years from completion of audit assignment. Member in practice cannot use the designation of director of a company. And lastly, it is permissible for a firm of chartered accountants to undertake the assignment of management consultancy service of a company where a partner of said firm is director solicitor. Now we have part 3 first schedule. Part 3 first schedule, clause 1, clause 2, and clause 3. Now what it says, a member of ICAI into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct in these 3 clauses. Clause 1, you are not FCA, fellow chartered accountant, but you act as FCA. So if you are not FCA, but you demonstrate yourself or you depict yourself as fellow chartered accountant, professional misconduct. Similarly, if you do not supply information being asked for by ICAI, or you are not complying with the requirements asked for by ICAI, it again will be a professional misconduct. And clause 3, if you violate the provisions of clause number 6, solicitation, clause number 7, advertisement and wrong designations, it will be a professional misconduct. In my understanding, clause 3 simply supplements and complements the provisions of clause 6 and clause 7, which we discussed earlier. Now we come into second schedule. Clause 1, Part 1, second schedule, what it says, a member of ICI into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he discloses information acquired during professional engagement. So whatever information you acquired by virtue of professional engagement with the client, you are not allowed to disclose that information and you have to maintain confidentiality for the same. If you do not maintain the confidentiality, it will result in professional misconduct. Now, exceptions are such information can be disclosed only after obtaining client's consent, or such information has to be disclosed if there is a legal requirement under the law to disclose that information. The same principles regarding client's confidentiality are also contained in Standard and Auditing 200, SA 200. Now, this clause, the clause says, as per clause 2, part 1, as per clause 2, part 1, second schedule, a member of ICI who is into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he certifies or submits a report on financial statement without examination. So if you are giving your certificate or any audit report, but you have not examined the underlying data and information, it will result in professional misconduct. However, there will be no professional misconduct if this examination is being carried out under supervision. So if your article assistants are carrying out the supervision and they're properly supervised and monitored, then there will be no professional misconduct. Similarly, if this examination is being carried out by other CN practice, and this CN practice is under your supervision, monitoring, or coordination, there will be no professional misconduct. Then there will be professional misconduct on the part of members in practice if you vouch the accuracy of forecast. However, if you're giving your report on any financial projection, there will be no professional misconduct if the principles given by SAE 3400 are complied with. SAE stands for Standard and Assurance Engagement. Now, what does SAE 3400 say? At a macro level, SAE 3400 says you cannot vouch accuracy of forecast and you cannot write in your report that these results are bound to be achieved. Rather, what you have to write that actual results may differ from forecasted results. And the very moment you write that forecasted results are bound to be achieved, it will result in professional misconduct. The proper language is that we are expressing a moderate assurance on the financial projections, and the actual results may differ from the projected results on account of uncertainty. So please do not vouch any project report, any financial projection without complying with the provisions of SAE 3400. Before we discuss the other clause, I am placing before the House one question as a case study. Consider the situation: CAX is proposed to be appointed as auditor of RST Private Limited. It is a small company. Now, what is the data saying? Mrs. X, the wife of CAX, she holds 25% equity of RST Private Limited, and the face value of such equity is only 90,000. Question is, can CAX accept the audit of RST Private Limited? Other question is, would your answer be different if she holds 15% equity, which is having the face value of rupees 1,25,000? So any answer? Normally in real world, my experience had been people say that there is no prohibition as far as case A is concerned. They simply go into the Companies Act. In Companies Act, we have section number 141. Now, section number 141, subsection 3 says, if a CA holds any security or interest in the company, then is disqualified from being appointed as auditor. I repeat, section 141, subsection 3 of Companies Act, what it says, if a CA holds any security or interest in the company, then he is disqualified from being appointed as auditor of that company. Now, proviso to this section says that there is no disqualification if the relative of the CA holds securities in the company for a face value of up to rupees 1 lakh. Now, people simply focus upon this limit, and then they come to a wrong conclusion by saying, because Mrs. X is holding only rupees 90,000 face value of security, there is no case of disqualification. It is not like that. We have to also go to Chartered Accountants Act. Now, just see what Chartered Accountants Act says. Clause number 4, part 1, second schedule, what it says, a member of ICI who is into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he expresses opinion on the financial statements of an entity where there is a substantial interest being present. Now, the substantial interest can be present either by himself or by his firm or his partner or by his relatives. That's why if we say relatives are also covered. Now, what is the meaning of substantial interest? Institute defines substantial interest to mean if the client is a company, then substantial interest shall be deemed as present if more than equal to 20% voting power is there. And if it is a non-company client, then substantial interest shall be deemed as present if more than equal to 20% profits entitlement is there. And when we say expression of opinion, it will include statutory audit also. Now, keeping this thing in mind, the question rises, what is the meaning of relatives? So, institute defines relative to mean spouse, parents, children, brother or sister. Now, keeping this thing in mind, if I come back to my case study, in case number 1, CAX, although is not getting ineligible, I repeat, is not getting ineligible under Company Z because face value is rupees 90,000 only, but still he cannot go ahead with the acceptance of audit assignment because the substantial interest is present via his relative and it is 25%. Whereas in second case, although substantial interest is not present because it is less than 20%, he becomes disqualified by virtue of Companies Act because face value is more than rupees 1 lakh. So what we need to understand, in real world, if you're going to accept stat audit, tax audit of any client, be company client or non-company client, please do check whether any substantial interest is present or not. If substantial interest is present, then you cannot go ahead with the acceptance of that audit assignment. And I must emphasize, this requirement is not meant only for audit. It is meant for even certifications. So if you're going to give a certificate, like I can say a network certificate, in the network certificate also, you have to check this kind of substantial interest being present or not. Further, a member of ICI is into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he fails to obtain information for expression of opinion. Basically, it's a violation of SA 500, that is audit evidence. So if you express your opinion without obtaining audit evidence, it will be professional misconduct. Then a member of ICI who's into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he fails to invite attention to any material departure to generally accepted audit procedure. So while doing the stat audit or tax audit, if you never complied any of the prescribed standards on auditing or guidance notes issued by ICI, then it will be a professional misconduct under clause number 9. Clause number 10, part 1, second schedule. Now what it says, a member of ICAI who is into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he fails to keep client's money in a separate bank account or he fails to use such money within reasonable time. However, what you need to understand, this clause will not be applicable on the money received by the CA as his fees or remuneration, or the money which is received is used in reasonable time. Now, Institute clarified, even money received by the CA in practice in his capacity as trustee or liquidator is also covered by this clause. So if you are appointed as insolvency professional, if you're appointed as liquidator of any company and you realize the assets, then you cannot keep this money into your own account. You have to keep this money in a separate liquidation account. So do not mix the client's money with your own money. If you do so, it will be professional misconduct. Now, part 1, second schedule, 2 important clauses, clause 5 and clause 6. But they say a member of ICI is into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he fails to disclose material fact or he fails to report material misstatement. Let me ask you a question on this forefront. RST Private Limited valued the inventory on market value basis, while the AS2 requires such valuation on lower of cost or NRV basis. The impact of such valuation when compared with AS2 is non-material. Accordingly, Mr. X, the statutory auditor, did not qualify the report nor does he draw attention, nor did he draw, just a second, nor did he draw the attention to such non-congruous valuation. Question is he guilty? Yes, what's your take? So now accounting standard 2 says inventory shall be valued on lower of cost NRE basis, but the management of RSU Private Limited valued the inventory on market value basis. Now the contention was that even if they value on AS2 requirements basis, the financial impact is negligible, non-material. Now Mr. X, the statutory auditor, point that because the impact is non-material, why to qualify the report? And neither did he qualify, nor did he draw the attention to this poor valuation. Is he guilty? Answer is yes. Answer is yes. And that is why clause number 5 and 6 are there. A member of ICI who is into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he fails to disclose material fact or he fails to report material misstatement. Now you may say, if the financial impact is non-material, then the word material used in clause 5 and clause 6, it is keeping it outside the scope. Answer is no. The very element of contravention of AS2, the very element of contravention of AS2 itself is material. Because if AS2 is not being followed, it's a contravention of a law. And what the law is? Companies Accounting Standard Rules 2021. And hence, non-qualification in such a case will result in professional misconduct under clause number 5, that is clause number 6. Clause number 7, part 1, second schedule, where it says, a member of ICI who is into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he is grossly negligent of his duties. Now, when we say grossly negligent of his duties, it means it's an act of vituperative epithet, or I should say abusive characterization of profession. Now, what is gross negligence? For example, you sign the audit report on X date, but you are getting the working papers or the audit evidence on X plus Y date. That means you're getting the emails about various workings from the client after the signing of audit report. It is a professional misconduct, means you are grossly negligent of the duties. You are not maintaining the working papers, nothing but gross negligence. So majority of the contraventions which we have just deliberated may fall into the clutches of gross negligence. I would say clause 7 is simply giving a broader perspective to whatever contraventions may take place on auditor's forefront. Most of the contraventions committed by the auditor may fall into gross negligence. Now, second schedule, part second. Second schedule, part second, very simple one. What it says, a member of ICAI shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct. Now, I must say this is applicable to all the members. The member of ICAI shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he contravenes the provisions of the Act and regulation issued thereunder, for example, UDIN. If the provisions regarding UDIN are not complied, where he would be guilty primarily, he would be guilty in clause 1. Being an employee, so if a member in practice is there or a member in service is there, and he discloses confidential information about the CA, who is the boss, or the employer, then it will be a professional misconduct except for consent or legal requirement. If he submits false information to institute or its constituents, again, professional misconduct. If he defalcates or embezzles money received by him in professional capacity, professional misconduct. This is a new addition to the law with effect from 10th May 2022. Under clause 5, a member of ICAI shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he acts as an auditor of the company in contravention of provisions of the Companies Act. So whatever company law provisions are there in relation to appointment as an auditor, if you are contravening any of such provisions, it will result in professional misconduct. Then we have part 4 and part 3 respectively of first schedule and second schedule. Part 4, first schedule, clause 1 says, a member of ICAI shall be deemed guilty of other misconduct. So I am using the words other misconduct now. a member of ICI shall be deemed guilty of other misconduct in clause number 1 by he would be guilty when he is guilty of an offense by civil or criminal court involving imprisonment for up to 6 months. In clause 2, he may be deemed guilty of other misconduct if he brings disrepute to the profession or the institute as a result of his action, whether or not related to his professional work. In part 3rd, second schedule, he would be guilty of other misconduct if he is guilty of an offense by civil or criminal court involving imprisonment for more than 6 months. For example, if a CN practice issued a check and the check was bounced and the payee files a complaint to ICI, then he may be deemed guilty of other misconduct on account of imprisonment involved for more than 6 months under Negotiable Instruments Act. So simultaneously, the provisions will go hand in hand. Then let us discuss sealing on number of statutory audits. So we have council guidelines, and these guidelines were amended in Feb 2020. Now what the guidelines say, let us have an analysis. To have that analysis, we have to go into Companies Act first of all. So we have section 141(3)(g of Companies Act. Section 141(3)(g of the Companies Act says that one auditor can carry out maximum 20 statutory audits. Now what happened in 2015, precisely 5th June 2015, MCA issued a notification and says to count this 20 number, these 4 companies will be excluded: one-person company, dormant company, small company, and those private companies which are having paid up capital less than rupees 100 crores. Now, because of this law, which is contained in Companies Act, the interpretation was that one CN practice can undertake maximum 20 statutory audits and infinite, I repeat and emphasize the word infinite, and infinite statutory audits for one-person company, dormant company, small company, and those private companies which are having paid up capital of less than rupees 100 crores. To ensure fair distribution of work, Council General Guidelines Chapter 8 was amended in Feb 2020, and this Chapter 8 says one auditor can take a maximum 30 statutory audits in which the following are not included: one-person company and dormant company. So overall ceiling limit is 30, and in this 30, even this small company and the private company which is having paid up capital of less than rupees 100 crores, they will also be counted. The exclusion lies only for one-person company and dormant company. So you have to check whether you are having number of statutory assignments more than 30 or not. If it is so, it will be a case of professional misconduct unless and until the number which goes beyond 30 includes OPC or dormant company. Other one is a member of ICI. So guidelines, that is council guidelines, they further say a member of ICI into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct if he is appointed as an auditor where undisputed audit fees for carrying out the statutory audit under Companies Act or various other statutes has not been paid by the entity to the previous auditor. So predecessor was there and his fees was not paid and the fees was not disputed. Despite this, you accepted the appointment as an auditor. It is a professional misconduct. However, exceptions are there. Exception is there is no professional misconduct despite undisputed audit fees not being paid in case of audit of sick unit. Now, what is sick unit meaning? Sick unit means a unit registered for not less than 5 years, which has at the end of any financial year accumulated losses equal to or exceeding net worth. So basically, net worth is eroded. And if it's a 5-year unit, then this exemption is available. Now, one important note, for this purpose, what is the meaning of undisputed audit fees? For this purpose, the provision for audit fees in accounts signed both by the auditee and the auditor, along with other expenses, if any, incurred by the auditor in connection with the audit, shall be considered as undisputed audit fees. Let us take an example. If in the balance sheet of a client, in the current liabilities, audit fees payable is there, and that balance sheet is signed both by the auditee and the auditor, then this audit fees payable appearing in the balance sheet shall be considered as undisputed audit fees. So if the undisputed audit fees of the predecessor is not being paid, other than for the client, which is being a sick unit, it will be professional misconduct. So just see here, you are proposed to be appointed as tax auditor of ABC and Company, a partnership firm for the financial year 24-25. You found that the balance sheet of financial year 23-24 reflects a liability towards tax audit fee of CAY, that is the predecessor auditor, tax auditor. Question is, can you accept this assignment? Answer is no. So unless and until this fees of CAY is being paid, it will be a professional misconduct on your part if you accept this appointment. Now, somebody may ask you a question whether this tax audit fees of 23-24 is undisputed. Answer is yes. The question itself says the balance sheet reflects the liability, and this balance sheet reflects the liability means it is probably signed both by the client, that is partnership firm, and CAY. Other guideline is a member of ICI into practice shall be deemed guilty of professional misconduct in the following three cases. Case number one, if he accepts appointment as an auditor under the Companies Act when he is indebted for more than ₹5 lakhs. Number second, if he accepts appointment as an auditor in other cases when he is indebted for more than ₹1 lakh. Now, what is the third case? If other debt limits are given by some other statute, then they would be applicable. In this guideline, the internal auditor, concurrent auditor are not covered. And in case of a firm, if one partner is ineligible, then the whole firm is eligible. Debt liability, even by the relative, also needs to be considered. Then is the other guideline, remuneration for statutory audit and other work fees. This guideline is applicable only when the client is PSU or government company or listed company or other public company which is having turnover of at least ₹50 crores in a year. Now, if this clientage is there, then what you have to check, if your other work fees is more than statutory audit fees, then it will be a professional misconduct. The question is, what shall not be included in other work fees? The guideline says other work shall be defined as per section 2, subsection 2, clause 4 and regulation 190A, but other work will not include following three services: audit under any other statute, for example, tax audit or GST audit if applicable. Other work will also not include certification work done by the statutory auditors, for example, Form 15CA, 15CB. And then other work will not include representation before an authority. For example, if you're appearing before income tax appellate tribunal, the fees being charged therefrom shall not be included in other work fees. Guideline further says that this guideline is applicable to CA in aggregate, that is collectively to their firm, management consultancy company, associates, etc. This can be understood with the help of following chart. Let us assume this is an academic example, hypothetical example for the sake of theoretical understanding. Let us assume CAX is a partner in Measures X, Y, Z and company, a CA firm. And this CA firm is the auditor of ONGC. ONGC is a PSU. Now, other cases, CAX is also a partner in Measures DEF and company, another CA firm. And this CA firm provided GST training to ONGC staff by Mr. D, a partner. Question is whether misconduct is there or not on the part of Mr. CAX. Case number one, stat audit fees is 1 lakh, GST training fees is 1,50,000. Now, just GST training fees is other work fees, and just other work fees is not excluded in these three cases. So, GST training is neither audit under any other statute, is nor certification work, nor a representation. So that means this fees is not excluded, and that's why it qualifies to be other work fees. Now, because this other work fees is more than stat audit fees, it will be a professional misconduct. Now, note a very big point. This GST training is not provided by the audit firm, rather the associate firm. And that's the reason what will happen, professional misconduct. In second case, stat audit fees is more than other work fees, no professional misconduct. In the last case, stat audit fees and other work fees both are equal, so no professional misconduct. Now, there are certain decisions which have been undertaken by ESB. Let us discuss those decisions also. So these are the recent decisions of Ethical Standards Board, which are quite pertinent for members in practice. Number one, stat auditor and or tax auditor cannot act as valuer of unquoted shares of any company. Number second, members cannot be appointed as statutory auditor or tax auditor of such a company for a period of 2 years from the date of his resignation or removal as a director from such company. It is not permissible for a member to use messaging applications like WhatsApp to send messages to make people aware about his practice and mention the services provided therein. Member in practice cannot act as trademark or patent attorney. However, professionals are advised in relation to intellectual property rights is a routine professional work for a CA in practice, and same is permissible. Then there is no prohibition for internal auditor of a company to acquire or purchase shares of said company. See, the words are internal auditor, not statutory auditor. Then a CA firm may register itself on Udyog Aadhaar, a web portal of Ministry of MSME. A member in practice cannot hold customs broker license under section 146 of Customs Act. A chartered accountant in service may appear as tax representative before tax authorities on behalf of his employer, but not on behalf of any other person. A CA or CA firm cannot act as internal auditor of a company and statutory auditor of its employees' PF fund under the new Companies Act. Other decisions are, it is permissible for a member in practice to be a settler of a trust. This is something very, very important, and I found that this is one of the area where people are oblivion about. A CA in practice cannot exercise lien over the client documents or records for non-payment of his fees. So the client is not paying fees, you do not have any right to exercise lien over the client's documents or his records. A chartered accountant in practice is not permitted to accept audit assignment of a bank in case he has taken loan against fixed deposits held by him in that bank. Then is a CA in practice can act as mediator in a court, since acting as mediator would be deemed to be covered within the meaning of arbitrator, which is inter alia permitted under Regulation 191 of CA regulations. A chartered accountant can hold the credit card of a bank when he is also the auditor of a bank, provided the outstanding balance on said credit card does not exceed rupees 1 lakh beyond the prescribed credit period limit on credit card given to him. A CA in practice may engage himself as a registration authority for obtaining DSCs. A chartered accountant in practice may be an equity research advisor, but be careful, you cannot publish the detailed report as it would amount to other business or occupation. It is permissible for 2 or more chartered accountants in practice collectively to have a joint training session for the clients on GST and share the fees collected from the clients thereof. It is not allowed to print vision and values or members' photograph on the visiting cards. I found this is one of the contravention in real world. So if you have your visiting card, on your visiting card, your photograph cannot be there. It's a professional misconduct. It is not permissible for a chartered accountant in practice to mention the catchwords like quality, knowledge and transparency, integrity, etc. on websites, letterheads, visiting cards. A member in practice cannot mention services. I have found this is also a big contravention in real world. On your visiting cards, you cannot do so. What you cannot do? A member in practice cannot mention services such as filing of ITR, GST return, audit, etc. on professional documents, visiting cards, letterheads, or signboards, etc. I have seen visiting cards at the back of the visiting card. Generally, people write our services. This is not allowed. But it is permissible to mention services provided by the firm in the signboard, which can be put inside the premises of the firm. Then use of glow signs or lights on large size boards as is used by traders or shopkeepers is not permissible. It is not permissible. This is the question which I asked in the beginning. It is not permissible for a member to mention the name of certificate course of ICAI cleared by him. However, wherever diploma is awarded by ICAI, the same can be mentioned on visiting cards, letterheads, and other stations. So ICAI have several certification courses. So once you qualify the certification courses, you cannot mention the same after your name or before your name. Like FAFD, BRSR course, concurrent audit course, these are certification courses, so you cannot mention the same. It is permissible to mention the name of the member or firm of chartered accountants for inclusion in television or movie credits, but it must be taken care of that the exhibition of name is not made differently as compared to other entries in the credit. So you must have seen the movie at the beginning of the movie and towards the end of the movie, the page scrolls and several names are being given, director, producer, etc. Now, if your name is also coming, our chartered accountants, it is allowed. But the condition is, it must be taken care of that exhibition of the name is not made differently as compared to other entries in the credits. Then, write-up may contain information about the achievement or award given to a member, provided it has been awarded by central or state government or regulatory bodies. Members in practice cannot list themselves with online application-based service provider aggregators. Members in practice may upload videos of educational nature on the internet. No reference should be made to chartered accountants firm wherein the member is a partner or proprietor. Further, it should not contain any contact details or website address. Then about PPT, only the name of firm of chartered accountants may be mentioned on PPT made by the CA firm. No other details whatsoever are permissible. So on your PPT, what is the condition? Mention of contact details of members like mobile number are not permissible on presentation made by him. The names of other partners of CA firm cannot be mentioned in the presentation. The use of logo or monogram of any kind, form, style, design, color, etc. is prohibited. Use or printing of member or firm name in any other manner tantamounting logo or monogram is also prohibited. A member in practice is not allowed to be a publisher. See, the word is publisher, not author. So you can be the author, but you cannot be publisher of the book, irrespective of whether you are the author of the book or not. So I read it for you again. A member in practice is not allowed to be a publisher of the book, whether or not authored by him. Members in practice are generally permitted to author books and articles. There will be no issue in mentioning other chartered accountants' name with prefix CA in acknowledgement message of the books. A member in practice needs to obtain specific permission from ICAI to write a script or story for a movie. Then his internal auditor is not allowed to take GST audit simultaneously. A member of a firm can conduct training through seminars, etc. on GST. However, the member or firm may only invite its existing clients to such training programs. Inviting individuals or entities other than existing clients may amount to solicitation, which is prohibited. Then further decisions. A member can share GST, tax, or legal updates, mentioning himself as CA with individual name, provided the communication is limited to providing updates. Mention of firm name is not allowed. Testimonials are allowed to be mentioned on CA firm website, but not on social media like Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. Not allowed to share firm details intended for comparison of firms. The sharing of such details would tacitly result in claiming superiority of one firm over the other, which is prohibited in terms of advertisement guidelines. A member is not permitted to accept the appointment as statutory auditor of a certain branch or bank where he is revenue auditor of different branches of the same bank. Concurrent audit and the assignment of quarterly limit review, tax audit, GST audit of the same entity cannot be undertaken simultaneously. There is no restriction for the consultancy work if it is undertaken by a member along with the assignment of internal audit. However, please understand the word is internal audit. However, it had been statutory audit, then there's a prohibition. Now, in case of a bank, the stock audit or inspection audit and statutory audit are not permissible to be done simultaneously, since stock audit or inspection audit are kind of management function which cannot be undertaken simultaneously along with the statutory audit, whether pertaining to the same branch or different branch. The concurrent auditor of a bank can accept revenue audit of the same bank since both are the audits in the nature of management function. A member can simultaneously be the information system auditor and credit appraiser of the same bank, except in the case where appointment as information system auditor has been made under statutory or regulatory requirement. This is something very important and great. Chartered accountants in practice or firms of chartered accountants are permitted to register themselves on GEM portal, that is Government e-Marketplace portal, for rendering professional services. Some more decisions. There is no bar for a member to go in for ISO certification, but be careful. However, the member cannot use the expression like ISO certified firm on his professional documents, visiting cards, letterheads, or signboards, etc. Printing of vision and values behind the visiting card may result in solicitation. And lastly, it is not permissible for the chartered accountant in practice to print their photograph on their visiting cards. This I already covered, but for the sake of emphasis, I am repeating once again, it is not permissible for the chartered accountant in practice to print their photograph on their visiting cards. Then we have KYC guidelines. You may be aware, like KYC guidelines are mandatory from 1st January 2017, and these are applicable to members in practice. These guidelines need to be followed by members in practice whenever they render a test function. So that's why the guidelines says following details about the client should be kept by the members in practice only in respect of their attest function. Now, when I say attest function, it includes audits as well as certification. Now, what is the information you need to keep? First is entity information. Second is other information. Entity information, general information, name, type, business, corporate structure like parent company, subsidiary company, associate, JVs, regulatory information like PAN, SIN, DIN, director's name, address, details of other companies in which such person is a director, engagement information, that is what is the type of a test function, tax audit, stat audit, etc. Other information about client, it includes financial information, details of the auditor of ultimate parent company, if any known violation of the law, regulation, etc. Now, what about reports and certificates? Code of Ethics, volume 2, what it says, the reports and certificates issued by CA being, I repeat, the reports and certificates issued by CA bring to him to the notice of public in a greater or lesser degree. It is therefore incumbent upon him to ensure that the extent and manner of publication of certificates are limited to what is necessary to enable the report or certificate to serve its proper purpose. The important point is The members may, however, note that they should use letterhead of their firm for issuing reports and certificates. So whenever you issue any audit report, whenever you issue any certificate, please ensure the same is issued on your letterhead. I repeat, the same must be issued on your letterhead. These are some of the prominent points of discussion. I'm stopping screen share to show the next screen before the house. Just give me a moment. So just confirm, is my new screen visible to you? Are you able to see the ICAI website? Can you please confirm? I believe moderator is there on the other side.
Yes, sir.
Is the screen visible? ICAI screen is
Yes,
visible?
yes, it's visible, sir.
Moderator is not there.
She's
Anyway,
there.
so what I want to show you, you have to visit this website, those, and especially the members in practice. On website, you will go to the committees, then non-standing committee. In this non-standing committee, you will be having this ethical standards board. And in ethical standards board, please be careful to comply one requirement. When you will go to this website, on the extreme right, you will be having this heading: reporting requirements pertaining to fees related disclosure to institute under the revised requirements in Code of Ethics. So we'll click this. Whenever time permits you, you may read this whole issue at your office. This is the format of reporting to the institute, and this is being issued. This form is being issued by virtue of Code of Ethics Volume 1. So you have to fill this form and you have to email this form at this email ID esb@ici.in, and this form is required to be filled when you fulfill this guideline. That is given by para R 410.3a and para R 410.4 of Code of Ethics Volume 1. So you can refer this guideline, and primarily what this guideline seeks it seeks the information about concentration of your clientage. And this guideline is not applicable if the firm's total fees is not exceeding 20 lakh rupees. And what they say, it may be noted that in case of audit of government companies, public undertakings, nationalized banks, public financial institutions, or where appointments of auditors are made by government or regulators, the disclosure requirement to the institute about fees dependency would not be applicable. So this form is about fees dependency information. And this filing is mandatory by virtue of Code of Ethics Volume 1. So please check your P&L side, the turnover of your CA firm, and if the turnover falls into the thresholds given by these two paragraphs of Code of Ethics Volume 1, then you have to file this format, and you have to file this digitally by emailing the same to this email ID esb@ici.in. Very simple form. So it is not a tough form. So you have to put a signature, designation, etc., and then you have to file the same with ICAI. So this is from my side, the discussion which I was told to do. Vishalji, from my side, whatever topic you have given me, I have tried my best to cover. If any questions are there, some time is left, I would be happy to answer the question.
Yes, yes, sir. There are some questions raised by the members. First of all, I would like to thank you for this wonderful session. It was very interesting. It was
Thank you,
very,
Vishal.
very interesting. The way you have taken the webinar, the way you have raised the questions between the webinar is quite interesting. And we have received a lot of questions when you are moderating this session. I will just call the moderator. I have sent them the question, or else I will take that questions. So,
Vishalji,
Good
आपने
evening,
पूछ
good
ली?
evening. I'm here
okay,
on
okay,
the call.
okay.
Thank you so much, Kamal sir, and thank you so much, Vishalji, also for the session. Sir, we have some quick questions from members. Can we just start with the questions?
Yeah, please go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah. So the first question is whether, like when we empanel for concurrent audits, they keep a clause that if any of our client has taken the loan from that bank, we are not eligible to take up that audit. So in that case, what the members should do?
See, ideally, we have Code of Ethics Volume 1, and you have taken the loan from the client. In that very case, it will result in a kind of independence threat. And two independence threats will be there, primarily self-interest threat and self-review threat. In such a case, this audit shall not be accepted because it impairs your independence.
Okay. Uh, sir, but a follow-up question, I would also like to continue on this. Generally, what happens is like we also have clients who've done processing on their own and they have their own funding. We are not part of all of this also. So, I mean, why this? I mean, what is the independence threat in that case? I just want to understand. In case of statutory audits, how does it impact?
It impacts because you will be under influence, and that influence will be dependent upon person to person. So in such a case, what you can do, if you believe that the threat to independence is not there, you may
Hmm.
engage the reviewer who can certify that despite this kind of situation being there, the independence
Okay.
remains intact. So I would advise you may visit Code of Ethics Volume 1, and
Okay.
there are several paragraphs dealing with
Okay.
safeguards to independence. So
Hmm.
whatever safeguards are given by that Volume 1, if you fulfill those safeguards, then you may go ahead with the acceptance of the assignment.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Because this is a very genuine problem. Lot of chartered accountants face this issue. So it's good. Like if we can appoint a reviewer, it helps a lot. Can a practicing CA add his MCOM and MBA degrees also to his visiting cards and wherever he wants to print it?
Yes, he can, because MCOM and MBA, they are recognized by university or any other professional body as such, so they can.
Okay, okay. And so what about other diploma courses also which are being done for like under ACCA and other courses also like other institutions?
So diploma courses which are recognized by any statutory body like central government or state government, like PGDBM, this is
Okay.
allowed.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to check whether degrees and designations are allowed statutorily or not.
Okay. Okay. Can a practicing CA become a notary?
Yes, answer is yes.
Okay. Uh, how can the incoming auditor ascertain email ID registered with IC of previous auditor?
So you can write to the institute and they may reply you back. And suppose that the reply is not coming or the reply is delayed, the reasonable time is elapsing, then you have to
Okay.
take a declaration from the concerned client that this is the email ID which is prominently used by the
Mm-hmm.
predecessor. So there can be a kind of, I would say, preemption to the reply.
Hmm. ठीक है. So sir, that's it for today. Thank you so much for this enriching session. I'm sure that would have had amazing insights and thanks for the question answers also. It helps also a lot for the practicing chartered accountants and in general members to have a more detailed analysis of like how can you practice ethically also. Once again, I would like to thank you on behalf of Ethical Standard Boards for agreeing to taking this session and giving your invaluable time for fraternity. And I would also like to thank ESB ICI board for giving me an opportunity to be a moderator today. Thank you so much, sir, once again.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. Thousands of members have watched this session and we have received number of questions, and mainly in the questions they said please share PPT with us. So if
PPT I will
possible,
share with you, then you can consider for forward circulation.
okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Yes.